If I were to summarize this movie in one sentence, it would be that it's the exact same movie as the first one, except it takes place in LA instead of Central America.
Beginning, middle, end. Facts, details, condense, plot, tell it.
In 1997, during a heat wave, the police are trying to deal with two gangs in LA. People then mysteriously start dying in strange, gruesome ways, and Lieutenant Mike Harrigan suspects there could be a new player in town. The new player, of course, is the Predator, if you couldn't tell from the title of the movie and this video.
Who on earth are they?
Danny Glover plays Lieutenant Mike Harrigan. He's an LAPD officer who is investigating rival Jamaican and Colombian gangs. I think Danny Glover is very well cast in the role. He is easily my favorite character in the whole movie, maybe excluding the Predator. He plays the role of being a police officer very well. Would have got a lot of practice in Lethal Weapon playing an officer. He's a tough as nails police officer who's seen a lot of shit, wants to try and do the right thing, but has problems with authority. And his character is a bit of a hypocrite because he sits down Jerry and lectures him about the importance of not showing off and being part of the team and that kind of thing, where minutes earlier in the movie, he does this. You can't tell me that's not showing off. Kevin Peter Hall reprises his role as the Predator. Obviously not any voice roles for this role, but he played the Predator in the first movie. Hal Rail provides the voice of the Predator, taking over from Peter Cullen, who voiced the Predator and made the noises for the first film. Not a lot of lines of dialogue, obviously, but there's a few things that the Predator does say. Like, Gary Busey as Special Agent Keys. He's a DEA agent leading a special task force that's supposedly investigating the drug cartels, but is actually trying to find out more about the Predator and get to his technology. I really enjoyed Gary Busey's role in this movie, very enjoyable. And watching a lot of the behind the scenes stuff of him filming the movie, I'm convinced that he actually thought he was fighting against an alien from another planet.
I guess you're wondering what we're doing here in these barbecue outfits. Well, it's easy. We're going in after another world life force from another galaxy that has a self-defense mechanism that we don't understand. It's intangible to this time and space. It's actually from the theory of relativity and from the theory of quantum mechanics. Take those properties and equalize them, and you have the quantum theory of gravity.
Interestingly as well, his character was kind of a replacement for Dutch in the first film. They did ask Arnold Schwarzenegger to reprise his role in this movie, but he turned it down. I think it might have been because of money, or there was some kind of film schedule interference, not sure, but he couldn't do it. So Keys is the character we have instead, and I do enjoy Gary Busey's over-the-top performance. And we also have Bill Paxton playing Detective Jerry Lambert. He's the comedic relief in this movie, so he's kind of like Shane Black's character in the last movie, just says a whole lot of jokes. I think they're supposed to be funny because they're not funny.
I said because your husband is dead, you killed him. And you know what she said without missing a beat?
No.
She said, I stabbed that son of a bitch plenty of times. He never died on me before.
I liked his character in the movie. I do tend to kind of gravitate towards the comedic relief characters. I think a lot of people do. And I like how he interacts with Leona, played by Maria Conchita Alonso. I liked their little dynamic going on, how he liked her, she hated him, nearly crushes his balls, and they kind of get a kind of camaraderie going and mutual respect for each other as detectives. Also, fun fact, Bill Paxton has now been in a Terminator movie, Alien movie, and a Predator movie.
You can't just have your characters announce how they feel. That makes me feel angry.
So directed by Stephen Hopkins and written by the brothers Jim and John Thomas. So I believe the script was completed very quickly, within 3 months or so. So obviously not a whole bunch of time was spent with the story, ironing out the kinks of that, writing better characters, but we got what we got. And it really shows, because the movie feels pretty much exactly the same as the first, except it's got a different setting, the concrete jungle. But I do appreciate that they filmed in a lot of dangerous locations. They actually filmed in downtown LA. Haven't been there myself, but I hear back then It was very dangerous. They talked about all the garbage and waste, people yelling at them and abusing them, even finding a dead body and just rats everywhere. So that is a lot of effort to go to film your film.
Why don't you punch me in the face?
I don't think it fully capitalizes on its R rating. Like, sure, it's violent, people die in quite gruesome ways, but it doesn't seem to go the next level with it. Not saying that's a bad thing, but when I see R, I expect some really hardcore stuff. But I'm saying that when people are getting skinned alive, decapitated, mutilated, and all kinds of gory stuff are happening to them, maybe it does actually earn its R rating. It has some great over-the-top action sequences, especially between the police and the Mexican cartel. It's very similar to the opening scene in the first Predator, where the special forces are taking on... was it a drug cartel? Human trafficking cartel? Whatever they were taking down in the first movie. As with the first movie, the Predator still feels like the unstoppable force that it was. People can barely see where it is. It takes down people easily, just as impossible to deal with and comprehend as in the last movie. Splatter effects for the Predator looks great. That glow-in-the-dark goo looks really good. And I can see that a lot of effort went into the action and stunts. Like, for example, with the scene with Harrigan and the Predator hanging off a building, they actually filmed that off a 13-story building.
Loud noises!
Music is again composed by Alan Silvestri. He returns to make more music. So it does feel very similar. Lots of drums, tribal kind of music, if that makes sense. There's some good dark foreboding themes in this as well. Does feel very similar to the first. It kind of needs that to tie it in with the previous film.
There is no Easter Bunny, there is no Tooth Fairy, and there is no Queen of England.
So it builds on information about the Predator that we already know. That's how a sequel should work. The Predator only likes hot climates. In this movie, LA is going through a heat wave, so it would be drawn to there. More weapons that the Predator can use. How good is this? Like the spear, that's become a Predator staple going forward in this movie. Its disc, its like dart thing that it uses, it's just good. The movie also builds on like the Predator honor system. They will only hunt people that pose a threat. They just want to kill things that will actually pose a threat to the Predator itself. Children? No, we won't kill them. Pregnant woman? Nah, won't kill them even if she has a gun. Helpless naked lady? Won't kill her. So Predators do have an honor system. Of course, the infamous alien skull in the movie. At this point in time, there were Alien versus Predator comics circling around, so it was kind of a nod to that, and eventually we got movies made of that. Whether they're good or not, that's up to you. And of course, we learned that Predators have been visiting the planet since at least the 1700s. And of course, in Aliens vs. Predator, it's been longer than that, but that's a discussion for another time.
That rug really tied the room together, did it not?
The only comment on the production design that I have is that I remember reading that they were going for a kind of slightly futuristic look for the movie because this was made in 1989 and released in 1990, and the movie is set in 1997, so there wouldn't really be that much change. And the movie doesn't look like it's even that much extra futuristic. I know there's a subway system in LA that they put in there, and after the movie was made, they actually made a subway system, so the movie got that right. And also, before I forget, I do like the design of the alien ship. It has like an old Aztec, Mayan kind of tribal look to it. Really like that aesthetic. Works for the Predators. Pretty sure that gets ruined in later movies, but again, I'll get to that later.
Oh, that submarine's so fake. Look, you can see the strings.
So special effects wise, the CGI part of it doesn't age so good. Like, for example, on the Predator ship with the mist, when the Predators are turning visible again, you can see like where they're cut off at the legs because of the green screen effect. It doesn't really do that very well. That hasn't aged well. Also, why does the Predator get struck by lightning? That never made sense at all. It just looks cool, I guess. And the Predator especially looks dated when it is invisible. Even when he is invisible, you don't see his dreadlock / tentacle things. So CGI side of it, not so good. Practical side of it, very nice. As I said before, blood splatter, looks good. The scene where the Predator is trying to heal himself up from his wounds looks really good, looks really convincing. And the scene on the ship with the other Predators looks very cool. The artists that work for Stan Winston were allowed to have their own kind of interpretation of the Predators. Maybe not interpretation, but they were allowed to add different little things to it to make each Predator stands out, and that was really cool, and I really like that.
We've got to have money.
So, works well as a sequel. It does pretty much feel like the same movie again, but not as good, unfortunately. But it adds enough to the Predator mythology to keep people like me interested in it. It doesn't go too far with new mythology. Can't say the same about future films. But hey, yeah, sequel, not as good. That's to be expected, I think, with a lot of sequels. But I enjoy it.
It stinks. It stinks.
Would I recommend the movie? If you enjoyed the first, yes. If you like these type of movies, yes. But I can tell you that a lot more effort went into the production and special effects of the movie. How it looked, how it felt, the Predators themselves. All that has been put first and foremost, as opposed to a really interesting story and interesting characters. Characters are fine. They're not going to be your most memorable characters in a film. So if that's important to you, then not going to be your type of movie. Basically, just knowing about the Predator, you would know if this is the movie for you or not. So that was my review for Predator 2. Yes, I am going to get back into reviewing movies, but currently New South Wales, Australia is in lockdown, so I'm not going to be seeing much stuff that's new. So I'm just going to be reviewing some old stuff and just try and complete some different franchises that I've started reviews on but haven't completed. So, as always, thank you for listening to me ramble on about a movie for a few minutes. I do appreciate it. Thank you again, and I'll catch you next time.